So you've just finished a prototype. You show it to someone. What are you expecting to hear? Right? Most of us are just bracing for the bad news. This is broken, that's confusing. But what if the best feedback, the most powerful stuff, isn't about what's wrong with your design, but about what's missing entirely? Okay, let's really dig into this idea. We're so conditioned to think of feedback as, bug hunting, finding all the little flaws. But this question, it totally flips the script. It's saying that when a user asks for something that isn't there, they're not criticizing you. No, they're handing you a literal treasure map, a map that leads directly to a better product. And that brings us right to our first big idea here. We've got to shift our perspective. What if we stop seeing these requests as, more problems to solve, and start seeing them for what they really are? A gift. I mean, think about it, right? When a user says something like, "Man, I really wish I could do X with this," they're not just complaining. They're literally giving you a roadmap. Every single one of those requests is another pin on the map, pointing out a blind spot, a need you might have totally overlooked. It's pure gold. So, okay, you've got this roadmap from your users. That's step one. But a map's useless if you just stare at it, right? You got to do something with it. And that's where being responsive comes in. It's not enough to just hear the feedback. You've got to act on it. And this whole idea, it really ties back to a fundamental concept you've probably heard a million times: user-centered design. It sounds kind of formal, but the idea is actually super simple and powerful. It just means you stop designing for your users and start designing with them. Suddenly, their needs, their wants, even their frustrations, that becomes your North Star, your compass for every decision. Yeah, and there's a line from the material we're looking at that it nails it. Every request a user makes is basically a giant spotlight shining on a gap in your prototype. It's showing you that missing puzzle piece you were staring right past. This is about way more than just making a better product. When you actually listen and add what people are asking for, you're doing something incredible. You're turning your users into partners. You're telling them, hey, your voice matters. And that builds a kind of trust and loyalty that you just can't buy with any marketing campaign. All right, so we get it. We know why we need to listen, but what are we actually listening for? What do these missing pieces usually look like in the real world? Well, usually there's super concrete things. We're not talking about vague stuff like make it feel better. We're talking about specific actionable requests. Things like, hey, could you add a button here? Or I need a page that explains this part. Maybe it's just a little bit of extra text to make things clearer. Sometimes it's those tiny micro features that end up making a massive difference to the whole experience. But let's be real for a second. You can't just build everything everyone asks for. That's a recipe for disaster. So this is where you have to get smart and prioritize. For every single request that comes in, the team has to ask two massive questions. One, is this absolutely essential? And two, is it even feasible for us to build it right now? Okay, so let's say you figured out what to add. The next big question is how? And believe me, there's an art to this. You can't just slap it in there. It has to feel like it belongs. There's a pretty simple 3-step way to think about doing this right. First, you evaluate. That's what we just talked about. Is it essential? Is it feasible? Then you integrate. And this is key. It's not just about plopping a new button somewhere. It's about carefully weaving it into the flow so it feels like it was always meant to be there. And finally, you update. You've got to tweak the navigation, the design, all the stuff around it, so the whole thing feels cohesive, like it's all part of the same family. And this is the transformation we're talking about. Look at the before state. You've got this gap, this overlooked need, the user is confused, maybe even blocked completely. The whole thing feels incomplete. But then, look at the after. By adding what was missing, you've created a supported user. They can get their task done easily, the prototype suddenly feels intuitive. You've basically turned a frustrating dead end into a smooth highway. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? The end result? It's not just that you have a prototype with a few extra buttons. Nope. You have a prototype that's been fundamentally upgraded from the inside out. And the benefits are huge. First off, your prototype is way more complete because you filled in those obvious gaps. It's also more relevant because it's based on what real users actually want. And maybe most importantly, it's more testable. Now you can get much better, much more meaningful feedback because people aren't getting stuck on the missing pieces. And that's really what it's all about. All of that work,
The listening, the thinking, the careful integration, it all leads to this one moment. Your prototype goes from being just a bunch of screens to being a truly solid tool. It's finally ready for some serious, meaningful evaluation that's going to push your project forward.
Which brings us to the final and maybe most important idea. This whole process, it isn't a one-and-done thing. It's a mindset. It's about understanding that a great design is never really finished. It's a living, breathing thing that evolves with every conversation you have with your users. So the real question to leave you with isn't, is my design perfect yet? The real question is, who am I going to listen to next?